Hey, John, I appreciate you coming on my channel here and having some conversations about IAQ and all things air filtration and air purification.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
I met you recently in a class you had in Louisville, Kentucky on indoor air quality, and I really enjoyed the class. I learned a lot from it. And, one of the things that I came away with from that class was how much there is to learn about indoor air quality from an HVAC perspective, but also like how much people don't really understand about indoor air quality and air filtration, air purification, and stuff like that. So I'm interested to hear from you. Like, how did you get into HVAC, and particularly how did you kind of come to this indoor air quality aspect that you've mastered over the years?
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, we had thank you for taking my class, but that was 16 hours and we only scratched the surface. And so there's just so much. And so I'm going to like make one thing abundantly clear that IAQ slash environmental, building science, and HVAC are inseparable. You cannot separate the three. They all connect. And as you saw in my class, I try to bridge that gap. And so that's it.
Absolutely.
That's important to know right out of the gate. And if you start looking at those three topics as separate disciplines, well, my goodness, that just opens up a whole world of stuff. And it's fun, it's fascinating, it's
And just learning
intriguing.
about the interplay between the HVAC and the house and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, absolutely. And so, your question, how did I get started? Well, my goodness, I've been in this for 43 years now. So we're going to go down a little trip down memory lane. I'll give you the elevator version, if you will. So
There you go.
I got started stocking shelves, sweeping floors, and doing UPS at a supply house. That is as entry level as you get. But it gave me exposure to like parts and different things, and gave me exposure to different contractors coming in that do different things. And I had a friend who actually got me the job. He got approached by a contractor and went off to work with him. And then it wasn't more than a couple of weeks later, he said, "Hey, John, they need some help. You want to come over?" And so I did. And so working for that contractor, I mean, I was crawling under houses and changing B60 gas valves. We'd go to apartment buildings and pull window units out. We put them on the back of the truck and take them to the car wash and pressure wash them and go put them back. And then I got into evaporative cooling, and which you don't see a lot in the
Not in
South
the Midwest or the South,
or
yeah.
the Midwest. Yeah, that's kind of a dry climate thing. You see that a lot in California, Arizona, Utah, New
Southwest and
Mexico, and
West.
even Nevada. And then finally started to get into forced air, and it's just one thing after another and learning. But early on in my career, they put me with the install crew. And so I learned how to build and work with my hands. And I love that. And I've made my whole career on that side of the business. And I've done big and small, industrial, prisons, schools, water treatment plants, hotels, hospitals, the likes, and running ductwork as big as the room that I'm sitting in now. And residential, running a 5-inch duct into a bathroom. I mean, that's a pretty stark difference.
Yeah.
Working for different companies, seeing it done different ways, learning a lot of rules of thumb, which will get you in trouble, and
Yeah.
seeing it done the wrong way. I was in the pipe fitters union, I was in the sheet metal union, I was in the engineers and operators union, I was an engineer at UCLA. And so each step was like building blocks, and I learned more and more throughout the stuff that I deemed to be not so useful, and held on to the stuff that was. And as I moved forward in my career, I was exposed to training and education, and that just opened up my whole world. And I owned a business in California, so that's where I cut my teeth. But I worked for a company for several years, like 13 years, and I approached them and I said, "Hey, there's part of this industry that we're really missing here, and I see a wonderful opportunity and getting in on the performance side. And so here's what I want to do." And so I kind of sketched out a business plan on a napkin, and they said, "You know what, John, we believe in you." And they gave me $40,000 to get started. We got
Oh,
me
wow.
a little unit and some tools and a van, and away I went. My company in California was called SoCal Air Dynamics Performance Contracting, not heating and air conditioning. So I was an early adapter of that. I was a HERS rater. I was an air balance technician. I was doing air balances like a lot of the companies in California were running service calls. I was doing them hand over fist. Then I started doing commercial kitchen exhausts. And then that just led to more and more and more on the performance side. Then I became a building analyst, and then I did my core through the HERS program and being able to look at the building envelope. And then I was a level 1 thermographer. And then, as you can see, it just like building and
Keep
building and
stacking.
building. Just keep stacking and taking that knowledge and learning how to put it to work. I've had some great mentors in my career, and I can't say enough about, one, having a mentor, and two, being a mentor.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in legacy mode right now. I'm a little older. I retired once, right? So I came out of retirement, and now I'm semi-retirement. And they say if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And that's kind of where I'm at now. I just absolutely love what I do. But being a mentor and having a good mentor it's just huge on many levels. Professional, technical and spiritual, and just having a good friend, an accountability mentor.
Absolutely.
It's just huge, and we need more of that in today's world. So as I'm stacking blocks and learning, I connected with a gentleman named Gene Sperling. He was a respiratory pharmacist by trade, was really sick and tired of seeing what big pharmacy was doing as far as just, throwing pharmaceuticals at people. And then
Yeah.
they hook doctors in and get like free R&D. It's like, hey, here, I've got this new medication. It's supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Can you go ahead and prescribe it to your patients or clients, and let's track the progress of that. And if
Yeah.
you do enough, we'll send you to Hawaii. They do the same thing in our trade, which is kind of funny. Sell enough equipment, and hey, guess what? I'll send you to Hawaii. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. You would think something at that's such a high level on a medical side wouldn't entice people with perks like that, but they do, whatever that means. And so he got out of doing pharmacy, and like he had a brick and mortar, and started doing auditing. And then he approached me and said, John, I really want to work with clients. I think there's a holistic approach. He got himself trained, and we started working together. And we've done some amazing projects together. And if you remember in our class, we talked about Helen, how we built a scope of work for Helen. Well, that was
Yeah.
one of Gene's clients.
Okay.
Because he's a PhD in pharmacology, he had relationships with doctors, and the HIPAA rules didn't apply. And so he was able to have these conversations openly. And then I got to have meetings with doctors and not talk anything confidential, but just talk about what our approach was, what we're trying to do holistically, what building science means in how we want to identify problems, but create a scope of work and have a holistic approach. And we had doctors buy in. And so through Gene, I had a relationship with UCLA Medical Center, USC Medical Center, LA Children's Hospital, several prominent immunologists, oncologists, and allergists in and out the greater Los Angeles and Beverly Hills area that were actually prescribing our services to their clients. And
That's
so,
amazing,
yeah,
honestly, that you get
that,
a doctor to buy in that much on the home side of things.
yeah, and it took a couple of case studies, if you will, like Helen. And when they saw the results, they're like, this never happens, and have them go off half their medications and better quality of life. Now, my clients came to me with cystic fibrosis, COPD, immune, oncology, debilitating asthma, Lyme's disease, cystic
Inflammation issues.
fibrosis. So those are a lot of immunocompromises and respiratory compromises. And a lot of times there's no real cure for those, and they will succumb to those conditions, some of them. Putting our best foot forward, we can just hope for a better quality of life and maybe a sustain. If we can get them to a certain level and sustain them, maybe we can, buy them some more time on this earth. And so that's real indoor air quality. There's a lot of weight to that. When I first got started and started doing this, it was scary. And that apprehension, am I going to make a mistake? And I
Yeah.
made some mistakes, but is that mistake going to be detrimental to the client? And thank goodness it wasn't. There was some physical mistakes that were made, or things that didn't pan out the way we thought for both Gene and I, and we just changed course and just found out what worked. And
Yeah.
so
You
that
learn from it, you move on.
yeah. And so fast forward to today, I have the wonderful privilege of teaching indoor air quality all over the United States and Canada. I do teach that for Daikin and Amanda Goodman, but I'm also teaching that now privately for contractors in-house. I've done some coaching and stuff for the new flat rate. And with that, I was able to create with the founder, Rodney, the very first and only right now in the market, building science and IAQ menu pricing system, because it's one thing to learn about all this stuff, and we have to be able to be profitable. And believe me, I've given plenty away and gotten on airplanes and gone and worked with clients, but we need to be profitable. So we created that module. It's working really, really well. I do consulting in the field. That is, as I go out and work with contractors, I bring all my testing stuff, and we will work with a client, and I help them understand how to use the tools, gathering data, discerning that data, what's it telling us, and then creating a scope of work that's data-based, and then presenting it to the customers. And they get to use some tools that maybe they don't have firsthand, and gives them a better understanding of what it is we're trying to accomplish. And that's been very rewarding. And then, I'm a product ambassador for a company called Dust Free, and been working with them for a while, and I think we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, for sure. So before we go on, I want to touch on something. You had said that you worked with the doctors about solving these respiratory autoimmune inflammation issues for their patients. And I think that's a fantastic model that could be replicated throughout, the country, through the world or whatever, but I don't see it done that much. Do you see a way that we could teach what you do, what I do, what others do, and target that relationship in a way that we could kind of duplicate what you did to get more impact?
Yes, and I've been approached. It's like, can we scale this? First of all, knowing how to have a conversation with an immunologist or an oncologist or a respiratory person, and how to communicate what it is you're trying to accomplish. I had Gene, and I learned so much from him, and I got to listen to him talk doctor talk, right? And there's so many layers to this. And when I say they would prescribe our services, meaning we couldn't get an HMO or a PPO insurance to like pay for our services. It just isn't covered in the current structure that we have now. But we were able to, because it came with such a strong recommendation or a prescription from a doctor that, hey, we need to clean up the home environment, we were able to get a very generous tax write-off. And so if I go into a house and I need to fix that house, and they're spending upwards of $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 to do so, and it comes with that very strong recommendation or a prescription, so that's an easier conversation to have than to trying to get an insurance company to cover that, because it's just really not going to happen under the current structure that we have now. Some of my clients came to me with lung transplant recipients, and so how do you have that conversation with their doctor? One, if their home environment has to be just such, first thing we need to do is make sure they don't reject that organ, and then we need to make sure that that organ can grow and be stronger, and that they have a good chance that they don't have any other problems. And so by cleaning up a home environment, we're able to do that. So how you communicate that to a doctor is everything. And
Super
because
important, yeah.
most of where we're at in our industry is just sell, sell, sell. We want to sell something. And if we're more customer centric and being able to, hey, we have a solution for this problem, and not trying to have a solution just looking for a problem, if that makes sense. So we genuinely can look at a problem, create a solution based on science and data for the best outcome. So is it scalable? Yes. And I have had some contractors that have started with their own, maybe pediatrician or their own allergist or their own oncology or whatever that is, have that conversation. Say, hey, I got a guy that's really going to help me clean up my home environment. And then, of course, we had several success stories where they go in we change their environment. So it's not just indoor air quality. We're changing environments. They go back for follow-ups, and the doctors are amazed at how well they're doing. Increased lung function, increased overall well-being, able to go off medication. Those are all that's solid evidence to prove our case on what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and life changing for the customer, for the client.
Well, yeah, and you know what? If insurance companies are always trying to save a dollar, there's that old adage that's what an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
If we could at least have them get involved in this conversation, it's like, look, if we can change this environment, you are really going to save money because there's going to be less trips to the doctors. There's going to be less surgeries and less chronic illness, and making America healthy again. I mean, that is a proactive approach. And if we could be, and now they're starting to look at indoor air quality, because we've got two things. We're so consumed with the food that we eat, ultra processed. That is so important. And then we look at water, the water we drink, and you have these instances with heavy metals and plastics and different things, and so the water we drink, we're totally discounting the air that we breathe.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the trifecta of being healthy.
I really agree with you on the preventative aspect of it. I don't understand at all the insurance industry or why they don't, like, for example, I mean, you can get full body scans now that are relatively inexpensive that can detect cancer down to like stage 0, stage, 1, but insurance doesn't pay for it preemptively. They only want to treat it after you've been diagnosed, after there's some issue. And it just, I'm like, they would save so much money, to your point, if they just did more preventative things in advance and more education, but that's not how the system's set up. So it's super important.